We're inside of Illustrator and we're going to look at the gradient tool and the gradient panel together. And then we're going to look at, in another video, how gradients are applied to compound paths and the benefit of doing that. So the first one we're going to look at is just, we're going to come down to our tree here. And we are going to open up the gradient panel. Now, I can certainly apply a generic linear gradient to this. I can edit that gradient and by clicking on any of these stops, and I can change it to a greener tonality. I can turn this red into a deep green. And just edit every single one of these stops. So turning it into a brand new gradient. Now I could even delete a couple of these just by pulling them off. So there's my new gradient. Hooray, now I've got a green tree rather than a yellow tree, orange warm tone tree. And I can move where these exist. So these are my stops that I have, the location of those stops and how quickly they transition. So these are my actual colors, and I can move them anywhere along that continuum. But how quickly they transition is determined by these little diamonds. So I can have it so it almost looks like there's a hard line there, or if I split the difference, it's a nice soft gradient. But the closer that diamond gets to the circle, the more quickly that transition happens. I can also change in here the location. So if I want it to look like there's light coming from above and that this is the shadow, or perhaps it is, you know, in the afternoon and the light is strong on one side, I could look, but it doesn't look terribly um, uh, realistic. So maybe I can turn it into more of a round color here. So, or round gradients or a radial gradient. So maybe this is something, and I can change the size of it, what that might look like. But it's a little limiting, I will say, what this could potentially look like when you're using the gradient panel. When I start moving things around like this, I really do like using the gradient tool. And there's benefits of the gradient tool because you still have access to the stops and the diamonds, and you can move things around, but you can also change kind of the more easily the length, like how far this stretches. Oops, I just got deleted a stop here. I can stretch this along, I can move these around, I can change the shape, I can make it a more round. Oops. And I can completely move where this exists. So it's a nice, it's kind of similarly, like I can change to how I had it set up with the linear gradient. I can have it look like that, you know, it's late in the afternoon and the light is coming down from the side, and I can, you know, change the distance, I can change the shape so it's more oblong, and I can rotate this on the axis. So it's a little, I would say, a little bit more fluid to use the gradient tool especially when you're trying to change position of the gradient on an object. And like in this particular case, I am using the gradient to create more of a 3D form. So I might want to stretch it and have it softer over the entire object. So that's one. There are a couple of different options. Now, as you know, we've looked before at the gradient panel. There is also the gradient stops where you can come in and change the points. So I can change the color of these individual stops. And so I can make this one a really dark green. I can make this one, more of a more of a softer lime green. I can make this one more and I could add as many stops as I want and change those colors to suit what I'm trying to achieve here. So maybe so even more organic than what from like the radial. So lots and lots of different options for using either the gradient panel or the gradient tool, as well as when we looked at the gradient mesh.